Greetings, greetings, greetings. Today is November 7th, 2019, and this is going to be a quick lesson in weaponized logic regarding a message to the Christians. So I'm going to read a data excerpt coming from the World Factbook published by the Central Intelligence Agency, otherwise known as the CIA. And I just want to lay down the premise again that weaponized logics are here to cause you to logically process the things being spoken to you, to logically think about whatever it is that's coming forth in these lessons. So, according to the World Factbook published by the CIA as of 2018, there are an established approximately 7.5 billion people, estimated, 7.5 billion people in the earth. Now, of that number, approximately 2.4 billion people are Christian following this name, Jesus. Now, my question is this, and this is what I really want you to logically process. Does nearly 1/3 of Earth's population, approximately 31.4%, sound like the narrow path to you? Okay, let's turn to Matthew chapter 7. Does that sound like a narrow path to you? Yada Yahuwah. So Matthew 7 verse 13 and 14. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many thereby which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Again, does 1/3 of Earth's population sound like a narrow way to you? Okay, just think about that as I continue. Let's turn to Philippians 2. Philippians 2, verse 9. It reads as follows: Wherefore Yahuwah also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Yahuwshuwa every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Yahuwshuwa Ha'Mashiyach is master, to the honor of Yahuwah the Father. Of course, we see the name Jesus here in this King James Version. But when we logically process what we're looking at, we automatically know that Jesus could not have been the name, okay? Jesus did not exist in the time in which these scriptures was written, all right? The letter J is 497 years old. It did not exist during the time that the Son walked in the earth. So we automatically know that that Jesus is not the correct name and is falsely interpreted right here. Automatic. This is not, this is not debatable, okay? And so if we know that Jesus is not the name that the Father gave the Son, that at that particular name every knee should bow, then we really need to be asking ourselves, what is that particular name? Because there is never one scripture in the Bible where that particular name is allowed to be altered, changed, or translated into another name. The Father never gave anyone that authority. And being that, well, here, let's just continue. Acts chapter 4. Acts chapter 4, verse 12. Because, we're going to keep these short and sweet. Verse 12 of Acts chapter 4. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Who gives Christians or anyone, Muslims are not excluded, Isa, Jewish people are not excluded, Yeshua, or whatever it is that anyone wants to call the Son, that's actually not his name. That is not the name that the Father, Yahuwah, gave the Son. Okay, so these are the things that we need to logically process and understand, that the Father gave the Son a particular name, and that never once in scriptures is that name allowed to be translated into another name. Because when you translate something, you take the meaning of the thing and bring that from one language and bring that into another language carrying that same meaning. Okay, so you'll hear people say that, well, Jesus is a translation of Yahuwshuwa, or they might even use some other false name. But in this context, you'll hear Jesus is a translation of Yahuwshuwa. No, it's not. Why isn't it, right? Yahuwshuwa literally means, I am Yahuwah's salvation for those who cry out. What does Jesus mean is the question you really need to ask yourself. And when you trace the origins and break down that name, it doesn't mean anything, okay? So how is it a translation of the Son's actual true name? It's not, okay? Now, let's turn to John chapter 5. Chapter 5, verse 43. I am come in my Father's name. Who is come in his Father's name? Yahuwshuwa. Yahuwah is the name of the Father. Yahuwshuwa is the name of the Son. I am Yahuwah's salvation for those who cry out. Where does Jesus fit in there? It doesn't mean that. It's not the Son's name. So the question you need to be asking yourself is, who am I giving my energy to when I call on this false name, Jesus? We'll come back to that. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 4, verse 5. Matthew chapter 4, verse 5. Because the Son spoke on this. And what did he say about it? For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Mashiach, and shall deceive many. We have, I just want to take a brief moment, and it's not going to be long because we got a short amount of time left. You have Kanye West. I read an article, headline, highlight, that said Kanye West brings thousands to Jesus. Who is Jesus? Back in the day, you couldn't even say the name Jesus on TV. Now they trumping it up, promoting it, throwing it all every which kind of way. But who is this character Jesus? It's not the Son. His name don't mean that. And you can't separate the meaning or the character of a person from their name. When you begin to say that, when you take a person's character and assign an identity to that through their name, that is that representative, that is that particular character. That's not the character of the one you are falsely attributing characteristics to. You can't falsely attribute Jesus to the characteristics and then overlay that name over the person who you're talking about. That's falsehood. That's error. The Father gave Yahuwshuwa a name that at that name every knee should bow. You can't take Jesus and then try to transpose that on top of the characteristics that Yahuwshuwa did, the attributes that Yahuwshuwa brings out, the power in the name that Yahuwshuwa solidifies. Because what you're doing, and what you're doing is calling upon a false mighty one. Okay, let's turn. You know what? We're gonna save that for. We're gonna have a part 2 to this, and I think it's gonna mess around and be a lesson called false mighty ones. That, or however the Father should lead. False mighty ones, a message to the Christians, part 2 is what it'll end up being. I just kind of wanted to leave that with you to just help you to logically conclude. You can't say that this Jesus fellow whom you've been giving all your energy to is Yahuwshuwa. That name don't mean that. When you translate a name, you take the meaning of the thing, of one thing from one language, and bring that same meaning into the language that you're speaking. Jesus does not mean I am Yahuwah's salvation for those who cry out. Think about these things. logically.